What's going on, guys, and welcome to today's video. And as you guys saw from the title or description or thumbnail, we are supposedly going to be doing the Driveshaft CLUNK repair today. Now, let me kind of explain. If you don't know of this, then great. You shouldn't really be worried about it. But if you've been on the TRX forum or the TRX Facebook group, you're going to see a lot of people complaining or bringing this CLUNK up. Now, there wasn't really anything we could do about it previously if you guys had pulled the drive shaft off, lubricated the splines, but they always kind of seem to come back after some driving. Now, this is my personal 2021 TRX. It is a relatively early built 21, and let's see, it started doing it around 5,000 miles. The truck now has around 9,000 miles on it. So I am affected also. I knew, or I had seen a kind of service bulletin that came out a while back saying, hey, we're aware of the issue, we are working on a fix. So I just kind of left it at that and you know, knew eventually we would have a repair for it. So I think a few weeks ago, I happened to take another look just to see if there was any updated information, and lo and behold, we have now a real service bulletin with a part number for a kit. I made a post there on the TRX Facebook group, and everybody was excited or interested to see what is the fix, what's the deal here. And initially, the parts department was saying we were not going to be able to get parts until the beginning of October. So I said, well, okay, let's at least get one ordered, and in October, we'll see what we got. And just last week, parts department got with me and said, hey, your parts showed up for your truck. So I was excited and knew that I wanted to show you guys what's in the box. What are we dealing with here? Now, will you as a owner be doing this repair on your personal truck? No, not necessarily. This is something that's covered under warranty under a service bulletin. So hopefully you will just be taking it into your dealership, having it done, fixed, repaired, whatever you want to call it. Now, will this come back in a few thousand miles? I have no idea. This will be the first truck I am doing the repair on. So let's see what's in the box, and then we'll get this thing in the garage and hopefully get the rear drive shaft yanked out and do this magical rear drive shaft CLUNK repair. So guys, in our magic Mopar box here, we do have some instructions that we will look at. We do have a parts bag with brand new drive shaft bolts for the front and rear yoke, because they do have the blue thread locker on them. You're supposed to throw them away, one-time use kind of thing. So nothing special with the bolts, just replacements. And then we do have drive shaft slip joint boot clamps, because in theory we're going to be cutting the old clamps off, and we need nice fresh clamps to crimp down. Accordingly, we also have a brand new drive shaft boot for that slip joint. Now, the big thing that we were all wondering about is the magical grease. So let me put all this down and then we'll look at the grease. All right, guys. So the magical grease that's going to fix all of our Driveshaft CLUNK issues. Let me see if I can even get this close enough where you guys can read it. I don't know if I'm focusing. It's not a Mopar branded lubricant. But if we look here, it specifically says special grease for low friction torque in ball joints. Yeah, that's very weird. Country of origin, Spain. So we've got some fancy Spain grease going in here. Yeah, it's kind of weird. So guys, apparently this is the magical stuff Mopar wants us to use. I've never heard of this. I don't even know what the consistency is going to be, but this is the magic grease that will fix our issue. So enough talking, let's get this truck into the garage, get the back end off the ground, we'll get the drive shaft out of this thing, and we'll see what all is involved in lubricating our rear drive shaft and fixing our CLUNK forever. Okay, so we are in the garage now, and again guys, this isn't really something you're going to be doing since this is a service bulletin. This is going to be something you take in and have done for free at your dealership, but I don't know. I just wanted to at least show you guys what the process is so you could know what you're taking your truck into, you know, have done at the dealership. Now I've got my, you know, instructions here that came in the box, and the first step is removing the drive shaft, but they want you to mark the location of the drive shaft yoke to the transfer case, and then obviously to the rear end, because they want it all clocked the same for balancing or harmonics reasons. So I've just grabbed a little silver paint pen and just drew a line from each yoke to its corresponding mounting surface on, again, the transfer case end and the rear axle end. We can go under the truck. It's going to be kind of dark because I didn't bring my good light with me, of course, but we do have a light. So we'll quickly go under the truck and show you what we're working with. I already have some of the bolts out, but yeah, let's jump under the truck. We'll get the drive shaft out and get it on the floor here. All right, so we are now under the truck looking forward at the transfer case, and as you guys can see, I've got, you know, 3 out of 4 bolts off here, but you can see my 2 little silver paint marks that I've got marked, so I can make sure I've got my, you know, rotation or installation the same way it was removed. And then again, here is looking backwards at the rear axle, and I've got, again, a couple of paint marks here, just on one side of the flange. Now the drive shaft bolts on both ends are 16mm bolts, and they're kind of tough to pull out since they do have that blue thread locker on them. But yeah, once you get all of those out, you're gonna want to, you know, remove that drive shaft. Now, if you guys haven't been under your truck, that rear drive shaft is very, very long, and it is aluminum, so you really don't want to bang it around on anything as you're removing it. So now that we've got this drive shaft out laying here on the floor, the last thing it did want to be marked was the relation to the front yoke to the actual shaft. Because again, a drive shaft is balanced. You can see the weights that are welded on here. If the yoke is turned or, you know, put on in a different angle, in theory, the balance is going to be off. So you want to mark and have that shaft perfectly back how it was before. So I'm going to turn this thing, and I've actually got a seam here on the boot that I'm going to use to mark the drive shaft. So if I put my little paint mark there and there, I know that I can't mess it up when I'm going back together. Now the next thing, we need to pull off our drive shaft boot clamps. And you can sometimes, if you take your time, you can be really careful with these things and reuse them. But since the kit does come with 2 new clamps, we can kind of be a little more rowdy since we've got brand new ones on deck here. So now we can take and remove the 2 drive shaft pieces. And if we actually look, there is a factory paint mark, which is pretty cool. We've got a big orange stripe and then a little yellow stripe. So we've already got the thing paint marked from the factory, so that kind of makes our job even nicer here. Now the instructions do say to remove the factory boot and discard. So I guess we will get that removed here. Easier said than done. Now guys, kind of something interesting, I guess, is the fact, I wondered if maybe this new boot was different or something, but it is the exact same part number here on the side. So the boot is literally no different, and there's hardly really any grease inside the boot. So I don't really know why they are including the boot or having you change it, but we will do what we are supposed to do, I guess. Now, another thing I think is kind of odd is that there are big bold print in the instructions saying do not clean the splines internally or externally. Don't use any solvents, don't use any greases, just do not clean it. So I guess we are leaving what we've got on there. So I'm gonna just go ahead and get my new boot and clamp slid on this thing. All right guys, so I just cut the camera because I could not get the new boot slid onto the drive shaft yoke here. I probably spent an hour and a half just now fighting this drive shaft boot on because this is such a stiff, hard as a rock plastic that it is too small of a diameter to fit over this with at least normal human power. I'm sure a machine presses the thing on at the factory or wherever this drive shaft is made, but this boot will pull off, but will absolutely not slide back onto the new yoke. So I guess this means that me as a technician who's going to be doing these in the dealership, I am not going to be replacing the boots because, like I said, they do not go back on. The only way I was able to get this boot back on my drive shaft was taking that butane or propane torch and torching the inside of this top lip enough to get it hot and slide it over. It then was swelled up larger than the clamp. I had to take the clamp apart to get it to fit back over the boot. None of this is ideal. I would not want this done to my truck as I'm obviously doing it to mine. So I guess I'm learning here on mine so I can know on all of my friends and or customer trucks that come into the shop for this repair. I will not be putting the boot on. This is, again, not ideal. You are damaging the new boot just to get it heated up enough to slide it over. The boots are the exact same part number, so that's a horrible deal. That wastes so much time and it doesn't accomplish anything at all. So I guess for the future, I will just be taking off this very back clamp, sliding it off. We'll be putting our grease on here and then proceeding on and putting it back together. But there is no reason to take that boot off because if you do, you are never getting it back on without really doing bad things to this boot with heat or what have you. Since I pulled it off, I've got to re-clamp this thing on here, which that is not going to be a big issue. With a pair of these CV boot clamp pliers. So now back to what we are actually trying to do here is put this new fancy grease in the drive shaft. Now, if I'm reading the instructions that I've got absolutely filthy now, they want you to apply the full contents of that grease tube to the internal spline cavity on the main body of the drive shaft. They want you to apply that grease all the way around that internal splines and approximately 1 inch deep into the shaft. Now it also has in big bold print to not apply any grease to the exposed external splines on the transfer case end. Application of the grease into this cavity is sufficient. The grease will distribute across the splines during reassembly. And again, big bold print, don't use any cleaners or any grease or anything other than what they've given you. So before I forget and put this together, I'm gonna get my new clamp slid on the boot, and then we'll get our magic ball joint grease installed in our drive shaft here. And like I said, it said to put the entire contents of the tube or bottle in this thing. Now, I'm sure you guys are interested to know what this stuff is, and ooh, it is a white colored grease That looks almost identical to the little bit of residue that is on the drive shaft. So what does that mean? Does that mean that this is going to just start making noise just like the original did, or dumping the whole 25 grams of grease into the shaft is going to fix it forever? I guess only time will tell, but let's get this grease installed all the way around the perimeter. 360 degrees here. And then I guess I'm going to use just a clean glove to kind of help distribute this grease. All right. So now that we've got our full tube of grease in there, we are going to line up our paint marks. And get our clamp slid into place. And then last but not least, we will go ahead and crimp this large side clamp down. So here is our final product, kind of back what we started with. Obviously, we've got our full tube of our magic grease here put into our drive shaft. We've got our yoke splined onto our main drive shaft body in the correct orientation, and we've got our boot put on. So guys, all that's left is throwing the drive shaft back in the truck and going out and driving it. Now, no, I'm not gonna do that on camera. Do I think that this is going to fix the issue? Yes, absolutely. If you were to put any type of grease in here, it's going to temporarily fix the issue. The question is this going to fix it long time? Is it going to fix it forever? Is it going to come back? I honestly have no idea. Once I get this in, you know, I will drive the truck as I have been doing. Mine took about 5,000 miles, I think, before it started doing it the first time. So did they put too little grease in these things from the factory, and we are now dumping a full tube in that's going to be more than sufficient? I honestly have no idea, but it's what we need to do. It's what we need to at least do first here and see if it takes care of it. If it comes back in the future, maybe there will be a new magic grease or a new drive shaft. I honestly have no idea. I don't know anything more than you guys do, even being working at the shop. So I don't know. I'll throw it in. Like I said, I know it's going to fix the issue, but is it going to fix it for a long term? Only time will tell, guys. Hopefully you guys can get into your guys's dealerships, have this done, and yeah, we'll put some miles on them and we'll drive them and see. So guys, like I said, you won't really be doing this yourself. This will be something done at your dealership, but I at least wanted to show you kind of what's involved or what will be done. But like I said, this will be the last one I ever put that drive shaft boot on. It did not go well. It does not slide over the splines. I had to use heat. I had to make that boot, you know, soft enough to slide on. It's a little deformed where the clamp goes on. It just was not a good thing. I wouldn't want that done to my personal truck. So I definitely wouldn't want to do that to friends and other customers' vehicles. So I will be reusing the boot. Like I said, we looked at the part numbers. The boot part number is the same. So to me, there is absolutely no reason to change that boot. You are only causing yourself heartache. Grabbing the old boot here, there's nothing in it other than just a little bit of residual of that white grease, and that's the exact same grease that we added back into the drive shaft. So, moral of the story, any technicians that might be watching this, or guys, owners yourself, for whatever reason, do not take this boot off. You will fight it and fight it and fight it. I spent an hour plus in here cussing, yelling, beating, torching, and finally got it on. So yeah, learn from my lesson, don't remove the boot. All right guys, I've got to get this drive shaft thrown back in so this thing can move under its own power, and hopefully you guys can have some less clunky driving here with this new service bulletin fix, grease, mod, I don't know. We will see. And guys, as always, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys later.